So we're going to be talking about how to sketch sine and cos today, because I've always found this very difficult, and only recently after teaching does it kind of make sense. And I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so we'll start with 2 sine x plus 1. It's just my print in the background. Okay, so we sketch our axes. It's very noisy. See what I have to live with. Anyway, y and x. 2 sine x plus 1. So you're like, blank sheet. I don't know what to do. First, let's kind of figure out where we're going from. So we're trying to sketch from 0 to 2 pi. So that's good to know. And the other thing is, this equation, we need to know what we're working with. So the first thing I want to know about my graph is what's the period, okay? Because that changes everything. If I have to draw like 10 of them inside here, or I have to draw half of one, I want to know what the period is so I get an idea of what I have to draw. So the period is 2 pi on n. You've probably seen that before. Now how do you use it? That n is the number in front of x. It could be just outside the bracket, it could be this bracket if you expand everything, but the number in front of this x, there's an invisible 1 there. So this period is 2 pi. Now that I know that my period is 2 pi, I'm going to try and like sketch. I know I get one full cycle. So the next thing I want to know is, where do I start? Am I up here? Am I down here? Does it look like this? I don't really know. So the starting point is the next important thing to figure out. Okay, after you get an idea of what you're dealing with. Starting point, and the most useful starting point I find is when we set x equals 0. Sometimes we may have to draw backwards or forwards, but I like to start with x equals 0. So 2 sine of 0, what sine of 0? Just draw our unit circle. Our angle of 0 means we don't move, that means our line is here, and the height of that line is 0, or sine of 0. Fancy way of saying sine of 0 is 0. So that becomes 0 plus 1. Our starting point is at 1. Okay, so just make that 1. Finally, last thing we did know is, so we know how far across it goes. We know where we start. How high and how low do we go? So I call this A. And this is the amplitude. The amplitude is the number in front of the sine, because it tells us how much it varies. And that's 2. Sometimes it's minus 2. Doesn't really matter. So now I just want to know the max and the min. So remember, this is the only thing that varies. This can be up to 1. This can be down to negative 1. So this can be up to 2, or this can be down to negative 2. Okay? You just look at this number. That tells you how far and up and down you have to go. So if this goes up to 2 plus 1, we get max of 3. If it goes to minus 2 plus 1, we get min of minus 1. So I'm working between minus 1 and 3. So to recap, we have PSA, which is prostate-specific antigen for anyone who wants to be a doctor. But it's completely useless to know that in maths, so just know P is the period, S is the starting point, A is the amplitude, and then you put max and min. And with this we know we have one full cycle, we start at 1, and we go from top to bottom. Last thing we need to know is, what does it look like? Well, you know, a sine looks like this, and nothing's funny happening to it, like it's not being moved to the left or right, and it's not being inverted. So all we need to do is draw that. One full period of that. So, done. Now, last things we need to do is the intercepts, because they are very important. So how do we find the intercepts? Well, that's when y equals 0. That's what the x-intercept always means. So that's when this thing equals 0. We need to figure out the x values. So we just need to solve it. 2 sine x equals minus 1, sine x equals minus a half. Now if you use your little table, I'm not a big fan of this table, but if you have your table, you'll find that sine x, or sine pi on 6 equals a positive a half. So if we're looking for a negative half, we need pi plus pi on 6, which gives us 7 pi on 6. So the way I do it with the graph is I get this pi plus pi on 6, so that gives me 7 pi on 6. And the other one is 2 pi minus pi on 6, which gives us 11 pi on 6. And the way I do that with my little circle is I go, it's 2 pi all the way around, and then I go back a little bit, it's 11 pi on 6. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So that's what x equals to give us y equals 0. So that means if x equals this, and x equals this, y equals 0, that's what we got. Well, that's what we need. Poor grammar just there. And that's it. And if there were more cycles, we'd add periods to these, add another 2 pi because our period is 2 pi. So that the next one up here, if we continue this along, this point over here would be 2 pi plus 7 pi and 6 becomes 17 pi, 12 pi and 6, that's 2 pi plus 7 pi and 6. It would become 19 pi and 6, and so on and so forth. So that's how you do the basic graph. Okay? I'll give you the answers to the next 3. They should be in the link at the bottom. I'm doing this video without actually having the answers yet, but I'll try and put it up there. And if you have any problems with any of them, I'll also have videos in the set that this is associated with. Okay? Good. I'll catch you guys later.